this series of institute lectures we have started last year, and our Honorable Director has inspired us to organize these programs. So we are already quite late, so let me start immediately without any other introduction. First of all, I would like to invite our Honorable Director, Professor Ajay Rai, and our most distinguished Honorable Speaker of this day, Professor Uday Singh, onto the dais. Our student Arutrika will now felicitate Professor Roy and Professor Singh with floor. So just before starting the speech, I will request our Honorable Director to say just a few words on this occasion.
এখানে কি সবাই বাংলা বোঝে? Is there anyone who doesn't understand Bengali?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there are few. So our very distinguished speaker for today, Professor Uday Singh, who is one of the, we should say, best exponents on Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore at this point of time in India. And my very dear colleagues from IST Shibpur, Professor Guho, all the deans, Professor in charge of Institute Lecture Series, Professor Aparna Devghosh, and many of my colleagues are here, and my very dear young students. We are really very fortunate to have Professor Singh here amongst us, who is a very old-time friend of Professor Vichitra Guho for last 40 years, as he said, from his days of IIT Delhi. And then we have been thinking to invite him for a long time, and today that day has come, when on the occasion of the first Tagore Memorial Lecture, Professor Singh will talk on a very interesting topic, which is beyond languages and towards silence. And now this is a very important topic. I am sure that all of us will learn a lot about the depth and the breadth of this very topic in relation to Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, who had written or composed a large number of poems and songs on silence. Some of them একটা হচ্ছে তুমি রবে নীরবে নিবিড় নিভৃত পূর্ণিমায় নিশীথিনী সম। এই নীরবে রওয়াটা, থাকাটা, এটা একটা this has got a great significance. And in many of the Tagore's writings, you will find that there are plenty of references to silence. And in the midst of today, when the whole world, our society, our civilization is constantly having, and we are moving in the background of a cacophony of noise. Everywhere there is noise and noise and noise. In the midst of that environment, silence is something which is so important, which all of us deserve. And now in a few minutes' time, we'll see that beyond all languages, how we can move towards silence. Professor Guho will now take over, and I will not take any more time. Let the sun shower all its brilliance on this hall so that we can hear Professor Singh in a few minutes' time.
Thank you, sir. So, before Professor Singh starts his lecture, let me just give you a brief introduction about him. Professor Udayanand Singh, his forefathers, well, there is a written CV here of Professor Singh, but with his kind permission, I will deviate from this CV because I think I have the privilege of sharing a very beautiful and golden times with him during our stay at University of Delhi, during our postgraduate studies. Professor Singh, his forefathers originated from Saharsa, that is a district in North Bihar, where the spoken language is Maithili, the language in which Vidyapati wrote his immortal poems. His mother tongue is of course Bengali, and his father, Professor Prabodh Narayan Singh, he was a professor of the language Pali in Calcutta University. It is no wonder that Professor Singh, Udayanand Singh, later on in his career became a very distinguished linguist. Well, Professor Singh had a very checkered and brilliant academic career. He topped amongst all the students of the arts faculty of Calcutta University and was designated as the prestigious Ishan Scholar. Then he migrated to the University of Delhi, where after my studies in Presidency College, I also migrated to Delhi for my postgraduate studies. And there we shared the same hostel, and I very fondly remember those days when Professor Singh, actually he was a father figure, a friend, philosopher and guide to all the Bengali boys who went to Delhi for higher education. After doing his PhD from University of Delhi in linguistics, Professor Singh had served as faculty members to many universities in India, like the universities of Hyderabad, Delhi, Surat and Baroda. I remember very clearly that even during his PhD days, he was already an established poet in the Maithili language. He used to write under the name Nachiketa. I also remember that in 1976, because then I was also a student, he wrote an article that was Bangla Upanyasher Shorir, Sunil Gangopadhyay, where he linguistically analyzed the novels of Sunil Gangopadhyay, who was already famous novelist at that time in Bengal. Well, Professor Singh, he has extensively traveled throughout the world. He has lectured in Australia, Caribbean islands, China, France, Germany, Italy, Russia, Singapore, Spain, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Thailand and US and many other countries, in fact. He had been a poet invitee at the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2006. He was also a poet invitee at London Book Fair 2009. He led the Indian cultural delegation to China in 2007 and was a member of the Indian delegation to UNESCO Paris, France and USA during 2010-12 and to Russia, Thailand and China again in 2013. Professor Singh served as the director of the India's premier institution in linguistics, Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore. He has also been the first ever Pro-Vice Chancellor of Vishwabharati Vishwavidyalaya. Later on, at present, he holds the professorial chair at Rabindra Bhavan Vishwabharati for the endangered languages. He has about more than 180 research papers to his credit. He has authored 23 books, edited 19 books and translated 8. So you can see that a poet, an essayist and a novelist And slightly going beyond the official CV, may I say, well, I remember those days because Professor Singh, all of us were members of the Cine Club of University of Delhi, and there we shared the experience of seeing the movies of the international celebrities like Jean-Luc Godard or Ingmar Bergman or Roman Polanski and so on. But Professor Singh left almost no movies unseen, whatever came into the movie halls in those days, Hollywood, Bollywood, every movie. And he may also be called an expert on international cinema also. So we have Professor Singh amongst us today, and I invite him to deliver his lecture on Beyond Language Towards the Silence, a reading of Tagore. Professor Singh, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Professor Roy and Professor Guha, for calling me here and for the very generous introduction. In fact, the cacophony about which Professor Roy talked about, Rabindranath had a very interesting four-liner on those cacophonies. He said in Koriyukumo, these four lines, কাগজওয়ালা সারি সারি নাড়ছে কাগজ হাতে নিয়ে বাংলা থেকে শান্তি বিদায় 300 কুলের বাতাস নিয়ে. Basically what he wanted to say was that there's so much of noise, so much of cacophony in the newspaper. Rather than using language for various textual purposes, we are using language for purely noise purposes to really disseminate noise and more noise and create terrible confusion in society. And newspapers quite often play a great role in that. Be that as it may, let me come to the main topic of today's discussion. First, apologies. I really wanted to come up with a PowerPoint presentation along with my lecture so that the immortal visuals of Tagore, particularly his drawings, and there's so much of photography and so much of beautiful illustrations on Tagore, various aspects of Tagore, that I could show with my system. I couldn't do because day before yesterday I had to deliver the main Vaishya lecture in Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, which was in Bengali. So it was a kind of challenge altogether. So, but anyway, this lecture would be on the net, and I'm sure some quotations or parts of it, if you have missed it out because you may not have read Tagore or you may not know the language, you may have come from some other state, I'm sure you would be able to, read them up on the net. The topic is Beyond Language Towards Silence. Is human language capable of reflecting the complexities of the world outside language? That's the main question with which we begin. Human languages have certain kind of complexities, and the world outside has another set of complexities. Is human language capable of reflecting those complexities? That's the main issue that Tagore had been worrying, and several other people have also been worrying, particularly in philosophy, in logic, in mathematics, and several other disciplines. The linguists often claim that our medium of communication, this language, is itself multi-layered, intricate and complicated in architecture. Something that has been bothering all technologists who tried building products around human language, be it TTS, text-to-speech system, or the reverse, speech-to-text system, or machine-readable, learnable devices, or machine-aided translation devices. Whatever you want to do, you get stuck somewhere because of the complexities of human language. Now, this is one issue, therefore, to be resolved. And let's see how Tagore talks about it. The second issue is, to question, how do human languages deal with naughty content, which is at once within and outside the author and originator? The second issue has to do with language and non-language relationship. Things other than language, how are they related to language? In a more direct way, let me ask this question: how do speech and silence relate? It's often said that a continuous stream of noise, which we call human language, if you do not know Chinese, if you do not know Sinhalese, if you do not know another language, it comes to you only as a stream of noise, various kinds of noise. They gain sense and interpretation only because there are patterned gaps, there are patterned pauses or markers in silence in between the various units of speech. If there were no gaps, no silence, then it would be impossible for us to decipher what's being said. Therefore, gaps and silences have enormous importance in human language and the delivery and reception of human language. If this is true, one may conjecture that silence occupies a center stage of all our semiotic activities. What do we mean by semiotic activities? If you do not know the term, semiosis is any form of activity, conduct or a process that involves signs or symbols. So, for instance, if I say, instead of saying anything by speech, if I say this or this, something which is used so much in Facebook today, then these are really basically symbols or signs which convey meaning. This is a semiotic activity. All human language is a semiotic activity. Acting on the stage, dancing, singing, walking, dressing, everything is a semiotic activity. You dress in a particular way on a particular day for a particular occasion because you know that that's what really suits you. So therefore, silence there occupies a very important place, rather center stage in all our semiotic activities that control our system of representation, which we use in our language system. The crux of understanding Tagore lies in appreciating the strife poet had to weather within himself in trying to negotiate with some of these thorny issues. As an architect of Bangla language, who had the big challenge of taking Bangla language to the world stage, his main problem was how do we resolve the issue of silence and language, the language and non-language within Bangla language. How do we handle that? He desperately needed to understand this phenomena. In his lifetime, he was sometimes criticized, sometimes even by a few of his most eminent contemporaries, for being too Western in his thoughts. Some others criticized him for being too Indian, too much of looking always towards the Upanishad, always towards the ancient India. So there are both kinds of criticisms he had to weather. But he was actually doing these things because he was trying to find out the way. He was in constant strife to resolve within himself. He was aware that anyone who was in search of exploring the limits of language would have to chart a novel path as a crucial thinker. The main challenge was that does language have a limit? Is it possible to say everything in human language? Is it possible to really reflect true emotions? Because you have a logical structure happening here, and you have a surface structure of the language which would really come out with, whether you write, whether you speak. This logical structure and the surface structure, how are they related? Something which has bothered Chomsky, something which has bothered various logicians like H.P. Grice, also something which has been bothering Tagore in a great many ways. As a sensitive child, born in a linguistically and cultural, plural and vibrant family, young Ravi was perhaps trying to create a construct which is known as mental representation of the linguistic world around him, as well as about the world beyond the known space, such as Piagetian process of adaptation. He was trying to adapt, and that was something which was very crucial. So the gaps he had in verbal communication with the desired ones during his formative years perhaps had to do with his understanding of the value of silence. I started with the assumption that any serious attempt to do text mining would demonstrate that language or bhasha has a very important space in the work of Rabindranath Tagore. By text mining, I mean what I have done is actually from Mysore when I was working there, we had ordered the Vishwabharati, given them a huge grant to Vishwabharati to come up with corpus of Tagore, entire corpus of Tagore in a tagged manner. And they had done that and given back to us. So today when I look at it, I am able to do the text mining of all Tagore in a few minutes. Whatever searches I want whatever queries I want to fire towards Tagore, I can do that and I can get the answer. So I was trying to find out how does he actually handle the synsets of Bhasha? What is synset? The synonym set. That is, Bhasha is something which is language, which has various other synonyms. Kotha, bola, kawa, etc., etc. Whether in verbs or in nouns or in various other forms. All of them put together, if you look at the network, it's called WordNet. It's basically an idea which has come from the Princeton Psychology Lab, which is now being used by IIT Bombay particularly in Pushpa Bhattacharya's lab for creating various machine-aided devices for translation called WordNet. So these synsets of Tagore, of Bhasha, that Tagore had used in his entire huge corpus of writing, how has he actually handled them? How much was he conscious about them? Actually, even if you eliminate the synset, even if you just remove or take them away, the synsets, if you just look at the word language, Bhasha, it has appeared in Tagore in 866 times in his writings. Now, if you look at how many times, for what purposes he uses the word Bhasha, then some pattern would emerge. In Manushi, 1890, towards the beginning, when he started writing, he had a poem called Maunu Bhasha. Not surprising that right from early days, he would be worried about the Nirabata, which Professor Ajay Rai mentioned, and the language, which he also mentioned. In that Maunu Bhasha poem, he begins like this: Thak thak kaj nai, bolio na kono kotha, che dekhi chole jai, mone mone gan gai, mone mone ruchi boshe, koto shukh, koto betha. In the same anthology, he has another poem. Ato mridu, ato adho, osru jole badho badho, shoromoy shobhoy mlan, emon ki bhasha ache. For those who don't understand Bengali, how soft, incomplete, indecision choked with tears, how pale are the words tied in shame and fear. Then he answers this question about the silence, and he says, don't speak in words that has been already spoken by your eyes, because the body also speaks in a certain manner. Kothaye boliyo na taha, ankhi jaha boliyache. As he would like to urge that lies trapped within one's heart to be let free. Because there are lots of feelings which are within your heart, which are unable to come out in the form of language, because you don't know how exactly to structure your sentence to be able to come up with the right kind of expression. So he says, Uriya Barak Shoda Hridayar Katurata. Whatever lies are trapped within your heart, just set it free. Let it fly freely and see what happens, what the results are. Because if you spoke your feelings in language, there is a chance that the magic of illusion will be dispelled. Kotha diye bolo jodi, moho bhenge jaye pache. This is the expression that he used there. More I read Tagore, more I find, my belief grows stronger, that Tagore was a poet-linguist in the same tradition as Katyayana or Bhartrihari, who were also great poets as well as great linguists. We know of Tagore and his own works in linguistics, like he wrote several books, 4 books at least, major books. Shabda Tattva is known to people who have read Tagore. Bangla Bhasha Purichaya is also known to everybody who has read Tagore. And he is therefore has been somebody who's been worried about language and aspects of language, scientific aspects of language as well. So there are aesthetics aspects of language he has been talking about through his poems, and the scientific aspects of language he's been talking about through his works on linguistics. The poet feels he doesn't know his own self so well so as to find expression for his feelings because he has not known or read himself. You don't quite often read yourself. আমি তো জানি না মোরে, দেখি নাই ভালো করে. He says, I haven't really seen myself very, very carefully. I haven't really known myself so well to be able to come out with something which is meaningful. মনের সকল ভাষা, প্রাণের সকল আশা, পারো তুমি গেথে গেথে, রুচিতে মধুর গীতে. All that my mind could speak, all that my heart could hope, you are the only one who could read it into a lovely song. He then invites us to look above, look beyond. Let's look beyond language. If one looked above, what do you see? One could see the entire sky filled with billions of silent stars burning a long language through their bodies of expression. অনন্ত আকাশ ছেয়ে কোটি কোটি মৌন দৃষ্টি তারকায়. He also invites all to sit silently to listen to the great language of the quiet in this vast universe. প্রাণপণ দীর্ঘ ভাষা জ্বলিয়া ফুটিতে চায়, এসো চুপ করে বসি শুনি এই বাণী স্তব্ধতা. He says that. Was he a physicist? Was he a linguist? Was he a poet? That's the question which one can ask. But nevertheless, it's very interesting to see what he does. What happens if you do not pay heed to the poet? What happens if you do not listen to him? This is what Rabindranath says would be the consequences. শুধু কথার উপরে কথা, নিষ্ফল ব্যাকুলতা. বুঝিতে বোঝাতে দিন চলে যায়, ব্যথা থেকে যায় ব্যথা. If you do not really wish to understand this problem of language, then words pile upon words and make man's worthless anxiety aggravated while the days pass by and the twinge remains. Manushi had another poem called Prakash Vedana, pains of expression, difficulties of being able to speak, being able to write, where he begins with a lamentation, a secret desire of one's mind not be allowed to burst open. He says, আপন প্রাণের গোপন বাসনা টুটিয়া দেখাতে চাহিরে, হৃদয়ে বেদনা হৃদয়েই থাকে, ভাষা থেকে যায় বাহিরে. Interesting. Language is not within himself, language is outside. No, you have only pains inside. With this pain, you're trying to match that language which is outside. One wonders why the broken heart couldn't open to play the flute, or why the innermost pain does not bloom as flowery expression. Why must one wear a bare look bereft of all tears, and why the wailing veins do not find expression in one's heart? And he has another set of quotation which I'm skipping because of the brevity of time that I need to follow. In other poems in the same anthology, Upahar or Gift, Tagore mentions the cacophony of that maddens man and arouses a false hope of seeing something that has a sense, whereas in the cauldron of life, the happy and sad songs keep bubbling, where one could hear only the sounds that were devoid of language. If we are to believe that this is where Tagore's search for language of silence ended, we need to look at another anthology, Koriyo Kumul, where we have a poem called Hridayer Bhasha. And the lines begin like this. হৃদয়ে কেন গো মোরে চলিছ সতত, আপনার ভাষা তুমি শেখাও আমারে, প্রত্যহ আকুল কণ্ঠে গাহিতেছি কত, ভগ্ন বাঁশরীতে শ্বাস করে হায় হায়. The poet wants to learn a language of the heart, language of your heart and my heart, so that we speak on the same page, so that what he speaks, as Bachelard says, it's almost like reverberation. When great poets speak, the others feel, what he says is almost like what I wanted to say always, I couldn't say, but here is the poet who is saying it. So something like that he wants to say. And therefore he comes up with lines like this. অধরের কানে যেন অধরের ভাষা, দোহার হৃদয়ে যেন নোহে পান করে, গৃহ ছেড়ে নিরুদ্দেশ দুটি ভালোবাসা, তীর্থযাত্রা করিয়াছে অধর সঙ্গ. In several poems under collections of titles Pulingo, the spark, he shows his choice of language as a metaphor as well as his concern for language. In the opening poem, he says that he finds his lover shrouded in an unknown language. He can't find out. Perhaps this is always possible for an interlingual love affair. You don't know the other person who speaks a language which you can't share, which you don't know what exactly she wishes to talk about. অজানা ভাষা দিয়ে পড়েছো ঢাকা তুমি চিনিতে নারী প্রিয়ে. I can't really recognize you because you are shrouded, covered with an unknown language and a texture of unknown language. In the same vein, he composes another poem called Kahini, where he says, প্রভাতের শুভ্র ভাষা বাক্যহীন প্রত্যক্ষ কিরণ. There is no syntax in the morning light. Morning light is really something which transcends syntax. জগতের মর্মদ্বার মুহূর্তের করি উদ্ঘাটন নির্বারিত করে দেয় ত্রিলোকের গীতের ভাণ্ডার. And it somehow opens the cauldron, opens the huge drum of songs, of the eternal songs of life. They come out of it very easily. Tagore then sings a song for the pain and suffering and argues that the pain has forgotten its own history. It has only sighs but no language to express because it is like mid-noon at night where no bird chirp but only crickets shriek in monotone. যে ব্যথা ভুলেছে আপনার ইতিহাস ভাষাটা নাই আছে দীর্ঘশ্বাস সে যেন রাতের আধার তীব্রহর পাখি নাই গান নাই আছে ঝিল্লি স্বর. In this darkness the poet's pen feels tired and has only the hope that the language it is known will somehow submerge in the penance for silence. ক্লান্ত মোর লেখনীর এই শেষ আশা নীরবের ধ্যানে তার ডুবে যাবে ভাষা. At such moments of solitude, the springbird gifts its language to the shadows of the forest, and the sky asks for it again to sing a song in your own voice. Consider this poem, these lines from Spulingo again, poem 104. তুমি বসন্তের পাখি বনের ছায়ারে করো ভাষা দান আকাশ তোমার কণ্ঠে চাহে গাহি পারে আপনারই গান. Anthology after anthology, we are full of Tagore talking about language, which perhaps nobody has noticed. I haven't seen many people writing about Tagore, or Tagore himself writing about himself, on his use of language as such, on his love for language, his concern for language. In Puravi, for instance, another anthology, he has another very interesting poem where he says, it was as if there was a whiff of southern wind that shook his sensibilities, as if an unknown language was trying to arouse an unspoken hope. Beautiful metaphor, as you can see. An unknown language knocking at your door, trying to arouse an unspoken hope. তখন জানা ছিল না তো ভালোবাসার ভাষা যেন প্রথম দক্ষিণ বায়ে শিহর লেগেছিল গায়ে চাপাকুড়ির বুকের মাঝে অস্ফুট কোনো আশা সে যে অজানা কোনো ভাষা. This goes on and on, and I skip some of these which you can read up. And under anthology Konika, we get more reference for language, and sometimes these are on more lighter vein, hilarious tone. That is between the dialogue which is happening between the two birds, the crow and the peacock. Crow says that I am a straight-spoken person, therefore I speak a language which is very different. And what does the peacock say? আমি কাক স্পষ্ট ভাষী কাক ডাকি বলে পিকো কয় তুমি ধন্য নবী পদতলে স্পষ্ট ভাষা তব কণ্ঠে থাক 12 মাস মোর থাক মিষ্ট ভাষা আর সত্য ভাষ. Very interesting dichotomy that he creates between the two birds. Similarly, he also has dialogue between this ocean and the sky. হে সমুদ্র চিরকাল কি তোমার ভাষা? সমুদ্র কহিল মোর অনন্ত জিজ্ঞাসা। কিসের স্তব্ধতা তব গিরিবর? হিমাদ্রি কহিল মোর চির নিরুত্তর। Let's then from here try to theorize what I have been talking about. I have been so far giving you examples from Tagore's writings, but let me just come to this theory of this and move on to logicians like Ludwig Joseph Johann Wittgenstein, who revolutionized our inquiry on language, logic and philosophy, was also concerned with similar issues. Wittgenstein turned out to be the most seminal influence on a large number of thinkers worldwide through his work on relationship between propositions as expressed through language and the world at large, both in his works like Practice and Philosophical Investigations. He is known to have often reverted to Tagore and especially appreciated letters' use of silence in texts. That theory of numbers or mathematics and logic failed to capture this important aspect of man's attempt to break free of the boundedness of language while remaining within the realm of language was realized by both Wittgenstein as well as by thinkers such as Tagore and Aurobindo. To make it simpler, let's look at this. That you have absolutely known things, what you actually use in human language, the words are known. How many ways you can manipulate the language and sentence structure, they are also known. But with known words and with known set of rules of combining, permuting these words, what are you achieving as a writer? Completely unknown, infinite. So with finite set of elements, you are reaching the infinite. So this is the challenge that Tagore is talking about. It's the same challenge in philosophy and logic, mathematics, Wittgenstein is talking about. Both are actually on the same page in this respect. Therefore, the boundedness and unboundedness, what is the relationship between these two? This is something which is very important. Quite often to his brother, Wittgenstein said, read Tagore's The King of Dark Chambers. Quite often in his own circle, when other logicians will raise some other thorny issues on his theory, Wittgenstein will stop answering them and start reading out some poems of Tagore. Many people don't know about it, that how exactly he tried avoiding some of those thorny issues in this. So the influence of Tagore on Wittgenstein and other thinkers of seminal thinkers are not quite clear, not quite known. We only know of Tagore and Einstein dialogue and Tagore and some other people's dialogue. But there are lots of very interesting issues that have emerged in Europe vis-a-vis Tagore's influence. And particularly use of silence as a unit of expression, something that defines working of human mind and consciousness. On that, there are a lot of people who have been started working in the recent times. And this also takes us to the other thinkers of the same time, such as Kierkegaard. The idea that self is bounded finitely to the finite and infinitely to the infinite at the same time, which is to quote Kierkegaard, which would seem otherwise to be contradictory proposition, is reflected in Tagore's description of the problem of self. How does he describe? Tagore says this: man's words are not a language at all, but merely a vocal gesture of the tongue. The more vital his thoughts, the more have the words to be explained by the context of life. Then he added, those seeking the meaning get only to the house and are stopped by the outside wall and find no entrance to the hall, to the real hall of sense. To Bertrand Russell, Tagore had written in a letter, I read your essay, I'm quoting Tagore, I read your essay on the essence of religion in the last issue of the Hibbert Journal with very great interest. It reminded me of a verse in the Upanishad which runs like this: Yatra vache nivartante aprapya manasasah anandam brahmano vidvan na vibheti kutaschana. From him words as well as mind come back baffled. Yet he who knows the joy of Brahman, the infinite, is free from all fear. Then Tagore goes on to say, Through language, you cannot apprehend him. Yet, when you live the life of the infinite and are not bound within the limits of the finite self, you realize that great joy which is above all the pleasures and pains of our selfish life. And so, then you are free from all fear. This is quoted from Autobiography of Bertrand Russell, where he mentions this letter of Tagore to him. In fact, way back in another lecture called Sadhana, series of talks that Tagore had given in USA, Tagore had already argued strongly that man's history is the history of the unknown in the quest of the realization of his immortal self, his soul. Then he went on to add about his own journey man had to perform in the history of human civilization. What is the journey that man has undertaken? And I quote Tagore again: through the rise and fall of empires, through the building up of gigantic piles of wealth and ruthless scattering of them upon the dust, through the creation of vast bodies of symbols that give shape to his dreams and aspirations, and the casting of them away like the playthings of an outworn infancy, through his journey, through his forging of magic keys with which to unlock the mystery of creation, and through his throwing away this lever of ages to go back to the workshop and work up afresh some new form. Yes, through it all, man is marching from epoch to epoch towards the full realization of his soul. The soul which is greater than the things man accumulates, the deeds he accomplishes, the theories he builds, the soul whose onward course is never checked by the death or dissolution. So, on silence, therefore, one could always say that the center of discussion which I have so far led you to shows that for all these people, several people who have been worrying about how exactly the mental and the outward representation of human language work, it's the silence which plays a very important role. And breaking free or getting outside human language is the only way you can found your notions of truth and objectivity. Because language is trying to capture you as a subject. You are very possessive, personal, subjective about your own language. And yet when you say that I'm saying something objectively, what are you trying to do? You're trying to go beyond yourself, to rise above yourself, of your own personal opinions, and then try to be neutral. So this neutrality or objectivity is something which is very important. In fact, in Golpagucho, there is a story, Shubha, written in 1893. Now look at this 1890, Manushi is talking about many of these. 1893, he writes this. And I am translating this. Feeling we express in words, we construct ourselves. It's almost like a translation. The approximation is not always exact. Mistakes do occur. But eyes don't have to translate. The mind immediately casts its shadow over them. Feelings ebb and flow at ease. Sometimes the eyes sparkle. Sometimes they look faded and listless. At times, like the setting moon, they gaze out on all impassively. At other times, their glance bounces off objects like a swift, glittering lightning. The language of eyes of the one who cannot speak is limitless, benevolent and profound, somewhat like the clear sky, a site for an endless battle between dawn and dusk. You would notice that this is a very interesting thing that he's talking about, that you don't straight away speak. You think in one way, what comes out outside, as I'm doing now, is actually a translation of what I'm thinking. You are twice removed from reality. It's a very interesting way that he is representing himself. He says these things in a so nonchalant way in stories that a lot of people miss out these important philosophical points that he's mentioning in his stories. He's perhaps just describing something, and yet he is something which is almost like Schiller's thinking. Friedrich Schiller on his Aesthetics of Education of Man, draws from many other poets and thinkers while arguing that with industrialization, emergence of the divided class and state machinery wielding enormous power over subjects, all individuals are turned into mere fragments. And all of them are chained into a single fragment of the whole, bigger fragment. The dissatisfaction towards the prevailing state of affairs, which Professor Roy mentions in the beginning, where each subject must keep a vigil to the unfolding events in life or in society or in nation, is evident in his cryptic comments. And Schiller says this, look at this, and something which is comes quite close to what Tagore had been thinking. I'm quoting from Schiller. Eyes of the philosopher, as well as of the man of the world, are anxiously turned to the theatre of political events. Directly, they are not talking about politics directly, but indirectly, yes, they are mentioning this. Where it is presumed that the great destiny of man is to be played out. It would almost seem to betray a culpable indifference to the welfare of society if we did not share the general interest. For its great commerce in social and moral principles is of necessity a matter of the greatest concern to every human being on the ground both of its subject and of its results. It must accordingly be of deepest moments to every man to think for himself. It would seem that now at length a question that formerly was only settled by the law of the stronger is to be determined by the calm judgment of the reason. So all of these people, therefore, had actually been talking about these two dichotomies of speech and non-speech, language and non-language. In this context, Tagore had a lot of support from the Eastern philosophers, particularly somebody like Brajendranath Seal, who, as you know, was the first Vice-Chancellor of Mysore University, and he was brought in by Tagore when Tagore was setting up his own university, Vishwabharati, to advise him. Now, Seal had said in 1935 about the First World War, this is the 101st year of the First World War that we can say we are celebrating now. Because it's a dangerous thing about the World War, both World Wars. Before World War, Tagore had written enormously about the possibility, the danger of not being able to understand each other or being able to misunderstand each other. What is the result of that? And Brajendranath Seal had said about the First World War, 1918, a world gone mad and clanking the chains of hymns of hate looks and looks not in vain to the East, nay to India, for a new gospel of freedom, a gospel of peace and spirit in the oneness of the Brahman. And Seal thinks that Tagore was somebody who was giving this kind of gospel of freedom. I end with just one quote from Tagore about civilization. What's the difference between civilization in the China, in India, and these areas, and the civilization outside? The civilization of ancient Greece was nurtured within city walls. In fact, all the modern civilizations had their cradles in brick and mortar. Why Tagore was against brick and mortar becomes clear from this. These walls leave their mark deep in the minds of men. They set up a principle of divide and rule in our mental outlook, which begets in us a habit of securing all our conquests by fortifying them and separating them from one another. We divide nation and nation, knowledge and knowledge, man and nature. Look at these three kind of divisions. He's saying, no, that we are the chemistry people, don't come to us. You physics, remain outside. All the disciplines, the kind of fierce fight between one discipline and the other discipline. He said this is useless. Because ultimately you're pursuing knowledge, ultimately it's all the same. You're reaching somewhere same. So we are Indians, you are Pakistanis, remain outside. So it's the same problem. If you just look at this is cricket. Don't talk about football here. You cricketers go out, no? You talk about football there. So this is the same problem. If you just look at anywhere, any field, this kind of attitude is something which is destroying us altogether. And he says, we divide nation and nation, knowledge and knowledge, man and nature. It breeds in us a strong suspicion of whatever is beyond the barrier we have built, and everything has to fight hard for entrance into our heart. No wonder he talks about the Achalayatan in his writing as well. And he talks about breaking this Achalayatan, this edifice of strong walled borders, again and again in so many ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh, for enlightening us about Tagore's contributions to linguistics, in fact. Yes, we all miss out some fine points in Tagore's writings. We always think about him as a poet or a philosopher or something, but really he wrote many very interesting things about language without mentioning that he is writing about language. And silence, yes, silence can talk many a thing that languages cannot. I must say that. In fact, Tagore's essays on silence or his poems on silence, Professor Singh has talked about. I will simply give just a comment on it, just make a comment on it. Think about yourself. Suppose you are sitting alone and having several thoughts in your mind, jumbled up thoughts. Quite often we do that. Sometimes we sit alone and we think about this problem, that problem, my position in the institute, my studies, my relationship with somebody else. Many things we think within ourselves, and in a jumbled way we think about it, and really we talk with ourselves within our mind. Not very coherent words we utter within us, but jumbled up thoughts, they're coming out. If somebody is sitting in front of you and look at you, he will see that you are silent, but your eyes, your hands, your body expressions, without any language, they are saying many things. And if you go to movies, I was mentioning this Godar or Bergman or even Shakti Rai, quite often you will find 2 or 3 minutes complete silence in the cinema. Nothing, no sound, not even the background music. But even that silence tells you so many things. So silence has really importance in one's life. Sound has its importance, pauses have their importance, silence has its importance. Thanks to Professor Singh for this very nice Tagore Memorial Oration. And now, Professor Devjani Ganguly, I will request you to please hand over a memento on behalf of this institute to Professor Uday Naran Singh. So we are coming to the end of this session. I offer my heartiest thanks to Professor Singh for coming here and delivering this lecture. I really also thank our Honorable Director, Professor Ajay Kumar Rai, who has really been initiating this lecture series. We have already had 4 lectures, I think, already. This is the 4th one, right? We shall have 2 more lectures in near future, and this will continue in the years to come. So I thank all the students, my esteemed colleagues, and the staff members of this institute who has come here and participated. Thanks very much to Professor Abhunna De Ghosh, who is actually chairman of this Institute Lecture Series Committee. And thanks to Dr. Vibhor Das also. He is always very energetic in organizing such events. And thanks to everybody else. Thank you very much. A very good evening and goodbye.